Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Folks, just when you thought the Democrat Party, and more specifically the Brandon regime, couldn't get any more morally bankrupt, well, they double down and always prove you wrong. If you think that this is the lowest anyone or any politician or any White House can go, it's not possible to go any lower to be any more despicable. The Brandon regime will always prove you wrong and always shoot lower and lower and lower. It has been officially 1 month since a crazed leftist was arrested outside Brett Kavanaugh's home, armed with a deadly weapon with the intent of taking his life. We're talking about a thwarted terrorist attack against a sitting Supreme Court justice. And folks, it's also been a month, over 30 days, without a single word from the sitting president of the United States condemning this kind of action, explicitly condemning this situation. And then to make matters worse, that's bad enough. Jen Psaki saying that it's acceptable to show up outside of these people's homes, and Joe Biden refusing to comment. You thought that was bad enough? Well, Karine Jean-Pierre has now officially taken the stance for the White House at the podium, declaring that actually public intimidation of Supreme Court justices is a core tenet of democracy. The quote, "This is what democracy is," she says, as Brett Kavanaugh was forced to exit by the back door of a DC restaurant as a mob descended on his location. The White House is now on the record encouraging intimidation of sitting SCOTUS judges. Let me show you guys what's going on. Like I said, morally bankrupt. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this little interaction right over here with Jen Psaki version 2.0, except much worse, Karine Jean-Pierre being asked a very simple question.
People should be allowed to be able to do that.
In a restaurant?
If it's outside of a restaurant, if it's peaceful, for sure.
Really?
Peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
So these justices, because protesters do not agree with an opinion that they signed on to, have no right to privacy, is what you're saying.
But Peter, this is people have the right to, this is what a democracy is. People have the right
to privacy?
Of course people have a right to privacy, but people also have a right to be able to protest peacefully.
Is that
peacefully?
safe?
It's the intimidation and the violence that we condemn.
This is what democracy is. It's never hyperbole, is it? People say that it's hyperbole, it's an exaggeration when you say that Democrats hate America and are anti-American. It's not hyperbole. Instead of celebrating the 4th of July, they celebrate F the 4th. They burn American flags on Independence Day. It's not hyperbole or an exaggeration to suggest that Democrats actually encourage public intimidation tactics, Democrat violence and terrorism, because they constantly do. Oh, just mostly peaceful protests, as Democrat goons on the street burn down buildings and city blocks, assault people and take their lives. Oh, well, it's just mostly peaceful protests. People are just demanding change, is what they tell you. In other words, they refuse to condemn violent actions from their own party and their own voters. They refuse to condemn it because, really, they agree with it. They support it. They encourage it. They enable it. They fund it. Most of the groups that are organizing this stuff are somehow connected to the Democrats in one way or another. Activist group paying tipsters for locations of conservative SCOTUS justices to harass them in public. It's always the various left-wing organizations, whether it's Black Lives Matter or any of its associated groups, that are somehow connected to Act Blue and other fundraising organizations or Democrat campaign offices engaging in these actions. And so the Democrats don't want to condemn it because it's part of the Democrat strategy. During the summer of riots in 2020, Democrats didn't want to condemn any of it because they wanted the public political conversation and discourse to be about race and something emotional and something that they can manipulate. They wanted to pretend as if they were on the side that was fighting for something and that the other side was the enemy and that you needed to vote for them to see things get better. Of course, we all know how that one played out. Joe Biden told you that if you didn't vote for him, well, then you ain't black. And what exactly has he done for minority communities? Well, nothing. But of course, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent. Point being, Democrats never actually do the right thing when it comes to condemning violence, especially. Back to the summer of riots, 2020, it took Joe Biden over 100 days to condemn the violence. This is the point that I always make. They didn't want to condemn the violence. They only did it when they had to. And now it's been over 30 days. And once again, Joe Biden refuses to condemn an attempted assassination of a sitting Supreme Court justice. And then Jen Psaki says this.
So I know that there's an outrage right now, I guess, about protests that have been peaceful to date, and we certainly continue to encourage that outside of judges' homes, and that's the president's position.
And now Karine Jean-Pierre takes it to a whole other level, claiming that somehow this is democracy, that it's somehow acceptable to intimidate Supreme Court justices with the intent of changing their votes. Using violence or intimidation for political ends is the textbook definition of terrorism. And this White House can't even do the bare minimum to release a statement condemning this stuff. I mean, for Pete's sakes, even the restaurant that Judge Kavanaugh was having dinner in did more to condemn these violent leftists than the White House. Morton's Steakhouse blasts protesters who harassed Kavanaugh at dinner. The Morton Steakhouse chain ripped a group of protesters who targeted Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh while he dined in its Washington, D.C. restaurant earlier this week, calling the demonstration an act of selfishness and void of decency. Except it's really not just that. It's criminal. There's a reason why 25 state attorney generals are calling on Merrick Garland to enforce law prohibiting intimidation of federal judges. 25 state attorney generals, led by Alabama AG Steve Marshall, are calling on U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to enforce a federal law that prohibits anyone from targeting judges' homes. In a letter sent to Garland Wednesday, they wrote that the federal law prohibits picketers and protesters from targeting judges' homes, including the homes of Supreme Court justices, with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice. We, the undersigned attorney generals, act daily to uphold the rule of law, they wrote to Garland. These remarkable recent events provide you an opportunity to do the same. As law scholar James Herson said, interference with the administration of justice in the manner in which it has recently been occurring is illegal. Pointing to Federal Statute 18 U.S.C. 1507, penalty for violating the law results in a fine and or prison sentence up to 1 year. It is literally illegal to intimidate federal judges in order to interfere with their administration of justice. That is illegal. Yet this administration not only refuses to condemn it, but it refuses to enforce the law, which is important to the basic protection that Supreme Court justices deserve. And it's disgusting that it's a partisan issue. Could you imagine if it was the other way? Could you imagine, God forbid, I don't even like thinking about it, hypothetical situation where Hillary Clinton won the 2016 election and Democrats created a partisan, totally out of this world, wacko left-wing Supreme Court. Decisions are being made and released. Republicans disagree with them, and all of a sudden there's this massive Republican campaign to intimidate and target left-wing SCOTUS judges at their homes. Could you imagine what the Democrats would be saying? The word you would see all over the media would be insurrection, the end of democracy, the radical far right, extremism, terrorism. It's all you would see. But when they do it, well, it's a different standard entirely, and essentially the standard is no standard. Democrat voters are like a bunch of spoiled, rotten kids with parents that never hold them accountable. They can do what they want, act in such vicious, despicable manner all they want. Complete lack of decency is probably the baseline, all the way to extremism and violence and terrorism, and they can do it with impunity because their political parents, the Democrat leaders, don't hold them to account. Let them run amok and let them do what they want without any accountability, without any condemnation, as they continue to so hypocritically condemn extremism on the right side and air their January 6th sham hearings as they pretend to play the side of law and order, justice, and democracy. They're just so dishonest, so despicable, and now they're actually taking the stance that intimidating judges is actually what democracy is. Just when you thought they couldn't go lower, they do. And good on all the Supreme Court justices who, in the face of all of this intimidation, all the threats of violence, violent attempts, and doxing, continue to stand their ground, dig their heels in, stand by their decision, and continue to show us what true integrity looks like. Certainly something that is totally absent from the despicable, corrupt Brandon regime. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.